Hello ladies, welcome back to my channel. We are going to talk about another core value to those who have an old money mindset or are old money, and that is privacy. It has been said that old money individuals who live appropriately have their names in newspapers 3 times: when they're born, when they marry, and when they die. In contrast, contemporary American culture is fame obsessed, and it appears that the disease is contagious. The public equates fame with accomplishment, even accepting the acquisition of fame as accomplishment unto itself. The internet has convinced people that others really care about what they do all day and that their opinions are worth considering, and that having the opportunity and ability to share information means that it should be shared. We don't, they aren't, and you shouldn't. So privacy is something that I am massively being convicted by, but it's a little bit of a struggle because with the nature of my job, how do I do my job, but then also practice privacy? My mom is so private and she's always saying to me, Nicole, that doesn't need to be shared. And when I was younger, I used to think, okay, she's being a bit extra. But as I get older, I'm really realizing the more people know about you is the more that they're able to tell stories that are often inaccurate. And this is why we can notice that old money lives quite discreetly. The thing is that discretion minimizes the opportunity for resentment. Now, you may notice that people that come from an old money background enter the entertainment or sports industry, but they're still able to be in that industry with poise and privacy. And how they do that is that they keep the focus on their work, not on their personal affairs. And I think this is part of the reason why general society doesn't like the concept of influencers. I've wrestled with this for a really long time now, but I think there's influencers. Well, here's the thing, scratch that. Everybody has influence, everybody. You have influence. My neighbor has influence. Truly, my neighbor has influence and they are elderly, but they dug a garden on the side of the fence and then I saw it and I was like, I think I'm gonna dig a garden. And I did. And so you have to understand everybody has influence. But with that being said, I think that there's influencers and then there's content creators. I pride myself on being a content creator, not an influencer. And I think, going back to how I originally got on this topic, is that society has a problem with influencers and they might not realize what it is, but I think it's because influencers overshare. And so it's something that I've wrestled with, I would say, since when the pandemic first started and we were all stuck at home. It gave me the time to really reevaluate how and why and when and where I showed up. And if you saw one of my previous videos on this topic, you would have heard me say I deleted almost my entire Instagram following from 51,000 down to 1,868 followers, because I've done a lot of growing, I've done a lot of learning, I understand how I want to show up on that app and as a content creator, and I think that there's ways that you can do this job and in a private manner. And so that's something that I'm working towards, but it is still something that I'm convicted about on a daily basis. But what I'm trying to do is focus on my work and the topics that I talk about as opposed to me as a person and oversharing, and I'm hoping that that will balance things out. You'll often notice that old money aren't the type of people to kiss and tell. It's probably why, again, I can't get behind the spilling the tea type videos. I don't care. It's also why I don't really enjoy shows like The Bachelor, because it's so catty and it's just people running their business left, right, and center. Now, I mentioned this in another video, but if you haven't seen that one, I thought I would mention it here again. But there's a YouTube channel that I've been loving and it's called American Viscountess. And she mentions in the video that she first found out that her husband was an aristocrat and like from an aristocratic British family when he went to pay for something. They weren't married at the time, but when they were dating, he went to pay for something and she saw on his card, it said Viscount. And that is how she found out that she was dating someone that was a part of aristocratic culture here in the UK. And this is the essence of old money. They're not gonna go running and telling their business, and you might not know that they are something until you know. The next thing that you will observe about those who have old money habits or are old money is they know how to answer uncomfortable questions. This is something my husband and I talk about all the time because it's something that my mom has really tried to instill in my brother and I, is that when people ask questions that aren't their business, she's like, just play aloof. And I know, like, if I'm thinking about my mom, I know how she would answer. It's almost like, what would mom do? How would she answer this? But I do think that there's been times in life where it's kind of caught me off guard. But one of the biggest takeaways that I've taken from this book is that they go through a few examples of how you can answer uncomfortable questions. If someone asks you a question you are not comfortable answering, you have options. You may say, "That's an interesting question. Why do you ask?" When they tell you why they want to know, you will have a clearer picture about their intentions and you can decide how to respond, if you decide to respond at all. "I'm sorry, that's not something I discuss," is a solid stock reply. Or, "I'm sorry, I can't answer that." Then, stop talking, change the subject, or excuse yourself politely and walk away. Some clever people may ask, "What did you say you do for a living?" when they know fully well you haven't mentioned it. Feel free to say, "I didn't." Americans have a bad habit of asking people what they do for a living upon initial introduction. A good response to this is to keep your reply vague by saying, "I'm in the entertainment business," and continue by saying, "But my real passion is Egyptian history." Chances are the person will take the hint and ask you about Egyptian history. You can talk tut briefly and then ask them about their passions or interests. So if you are new to this channel, you may not know that I took Anna Bay's program, Secrets of the Elite Woman. And one of the things that she talks about on her channel and in that program is that we shouldn't ask people what they do. And the first time that she said this, I was like, that's a bit extra. That's one of the most common questions you can ask someone. Like, how do you show them that you're interested in who they are and what they do? And then about a year ago, I was at one of my clients and one of his staff was there and she was talking about how her partner was on this really rigorous extreme diet. And I was like, "Oh, why?" And then she was like, "Oh, it's for work." And I was like, "What does he do?" And I instantly saw her shrink down. Honestly, it was like a full body reaction. And she was like, "He's a footballer." And in that moment, I could just hear Anna Bay, "Don't ask people what they do." And I think because I don't think I need to go into footballer culture. They make a lot of money, they live a little bit lavish lifestyles, and then people maybe treat them differently, for better or for worse. And it was such a real life moment for me to learn and see this is why you don't ask that question. Equally, since then, I've learned when people ask me what I do, because what I do isn't the most conventional job, I didn't like answering the question. Because I used to refer to myself as an influencer and a lot of people don't like influencers, I noticed that I didn't want to be honest about what I did. And it's interesting to me that it took me so long to realize that that was an inappropriate question because I didn't like being asked that question. Surely I should have put two and two together that other people wouldn't like to be asked that question. But what can I say? It took me a long time, but I'm here now. Now, with that being said, if the topic of conversation comes up and people are wondering what I do for a living, to be honest with you, I still say I'm in digital marketing because sometimes I just don't want to talk about what it is that I do. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what I do for a living. But equally, I feel so empowered now that I have a little bit more classy and refined ways of telling people that I don't want to answer a certain question. So here are some helpful hints that we can take away. Stay away from people who talk about other people's money. Photos that you put online are out there forever. Take stock of all of the information that you've put online on different platforms. One of the ways that I really realized that I needed to go over this was, you know how on Facebook it will say, 5 years ago, you updated your status to this. And some of the things that I used to put online, I have learned a lot. So take stock of what you've put on different platforms. Equally, take stock of some of the cultural things that are happening around us. There is a influencer local to me who had her old Twitter rediscovered and unfortunately is now out of a career because of what was discovered. Now, I'm not saying go hide your dirty and poor behavior, But I do think that we have all grown, or hopefully we've all grown. And so I think that sometimes we have to accept that we were somebody before, but let's do a little bit of cleanup work so we wouldn't be judged off of who we once were and not who we are today in the present day. Now, one of the things that I'm personally taking away in my career is that you can't control fame, not that I'm famous at all, but you can control privacy. The next thing that I took away from this chapter of the book is be very careful about who you invite into your home. Your home is a sacred place and not everybody should have access to it. And last but not least, just because someone asks a question doesn't mean that they deserve an answer. Anyways, ladies, that is it for this video. I hope you will join me in the next video on this book, and it's going to be about attire.